إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح. حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين المبعوث رحمة للعالمين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. After praising Allah for His bounties and seeking forgiveness for myself and all mu'mineen and mu'minat, today I would like to begin a series, inshallah, which we will continue for as long as Allah gives tawfiq, of looking at the teachings and the ahadith of Ahlul Bayt about various aspects of our religious practice in particular. How did Ahlul Bayt teach us to live as Muslims? And what was the way in which they introduced the commandments of our religion to us? So inshallah, we will begin with a hadith that speak about the ibadat or the obligations that we have as Muslims. The first hadith is narrated from our fifth Imam, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam. It is narrated by one of his very close companions and students, Zurara ibn A'yan, who later on became perhaps the most prominent scholar of Islamic law in the time of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam. What I mean by that is that he studied under our 5th Imam, and he was also a student of our 6th Imam, but our Imams lived in Medina. And the majority of the followers of the Imam and the Shia, they lived in Kufa. And so in Kufa, he was the most prominent teacher of Islamic law, of doctrines, similar to the role of the Maraji' al-Taqleed today. So not a ma'soom, but somebody who is conveying the teachings of the ma'soom to the people. So this hadith is narrated from our 5th Imam, in which he is reported to have said, بُنِيَ الْإِسْلَامُ عَلَى خَمْسَةِ أَشْيَاء. Islam was built on 5 things, 5 foundations. And there are many similar ahadith which are found from our 5th and our 6th Imam in particular. There are 5 foundations of Islam. This is different from the 5 pillars that many people know of from introductory books or courses on Islam. The 5 pillars as taught by Ahlul Bayt, they are as-salah, wal-zakah, wal-hajj, wal-sawm, wal-wilaya. First is salat, or prayer, the wajib prayers, the obligatory prayers that we perform. Second is zakat, the charity or the alms that we give in the way of Allah and for the love of Allah to those who are needy. Third is hajj, pilgrimage to the Kaaba. Fourth is as-sawm, fasting in the month of Ramadan. All of these are obligations that are mentioned in the Quran. And then fifth is wilaya, the obedience, the attachment to the chain of divine leadership, which Allah has also commanded us in the Quran. أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم. Obey Allah, obey the messenger, and obey those who have been given authority among you. This is not referring to political authority, because Islam is not about politics. Islam is about achieving closeness to Allah and fulfilling the purpose that Allah has given us to accomplish on this earth. So it includes politics, but it is not about politics. It is about guidance. It is about truth. And obedience to ulul amr is also to bring us close to truth. So all 5 of these teachings, they are from the Quran. Salat, zakat, hajj, sawm, and wilaya. None of these is independent of the Quran. Now, Zurara, as a student, he says, فَقُلْتُ وَأَيُّ شَيْءٍ مِّن ذَلِكَ أَفْضَلُ. So, he asks the Imam, which of these 5 is best? And the Imam replies, الْوِلَايَةُ أَفْضَلُ لِأَنَّهَا مِفْتَاحُهُنَّ. The best of these is wilaya, because wilaya is the key that opens the rest of them and ensures that they are able to accomplish their purpose. Now, this is a religious teaching, because it is through wilaya that our other acts of worship, they acquire a purpose. At a very simple level, a person can do many good deeds, but if they don't believe in Allah or the Prophet, then those good deeds, they may benefit people, but they are not rewarded in the hereafter, because they are not religious and devotional acts of worship. So I can help somebody in charity, but if I don't believe in God and I don't believe in the Prophet, then that is a worldly act, it is not a spiritual act. If I fast or I pray, but I don't believe in Prophet Muhammad, that is also wilaya. Wilaya is not only our imams, wilaya is Allah and the Prophet and the Imam. أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم. So all of them are part of, alaykum salam, ita'at, and part of wilayat. If I pray to Allah, but I don't accept the Prophet, then that prayer, it isn't a true prayer and it is not accepted, nor does it have the benefit that it is meant to have within society to bring us together as an ummah to fulfill our purpose, which Allah has given us. So the key is the wilayah of Allah and the Prophet and the Imam. وَالْوَالِي هُوَ الدَّلِيلُ عَلَيْهِنَّ. And the one who has wilayah, the Imam, he is the guide to tell you what is the right way to pray and to give zakat and to do hajj and to fast or to do psalm. So the guidance of how to do them, this is through the Imam. Zurara said, what is the second best? The Imam says, Salah. After wilayat, the second most important of these 5 foundations of Islam is prayer. Then Zurara says, after that, az-zakah. The third is zakat. And the Imam says, لِأَنَّهُ قَرَنَهَا بِهَا وَبَدَأَ بِالصَّلَاةِ قَبْلَهَا. Zakat is mentioned with prayer, but prayer comes first. أَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةِ. So they are mentioned together. In some ahadith, they are called al-qarinatan, the two that are mentioned together. But prayer is mentioned first, and so it is more important. After that, then will be zakat, and after that will be hajj. And then finally, the 5th and the final act of worship is Saum. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, in other ahadith, these important pillars of faith, they have been summarized. This one mentioned 5. There is a hadith that mentions 3 as being even more foundational. You know, if I say, what is Islam? Then I can say it is wilayat, and it is salat and zakat, and hajj and saum. But I can summarize all 5 of those into one, which is wilayat. Because wilayat means tawheed. It means understanding the attributes of Allah. And if you understand tawheed and you understand the attributes of Allah, then you understand your obligation to Allah. And that brings nubuwah. And then if you understand nubuwah, that brings believing in the Quran and following the commandments of the Prophet. And so I can summarize the various practices of Islam into the concept of wilayah, which is both a doctrine, your belief, and a practice, what you do on the basis of that belief. So this hadith now mentions 3 things as a foundation of Islam. It is narrated from our 6th Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, in which the Imam says, Athafiyul Islam thalatha. Athafi in Arabic is the plural of uthfiyya, and this is used to refer to, back before modern appliances, how did people used to cook? They would make a fire, and then they would put maybe 2 or 3 stones, and they would put whatever pot or utensil they're using to cook on top of those stones. So those stones, they became like a pillar or a support for the pot that is going to be used to cook. It is kind of like an oven or a stove that is created. That platform is called uthfiyya, and the plural is athafi. Some of you may have done that when you're camping, or you may remember back at a time when life was simpler and people used to sometimes cook like that even at home. So that was athafi, this foundation of Islam, which allows you then to cook, which allows you to have a nutritious and a beautiful meal. They are 3, and often when you are cooking, you will also have 3 stones. Maybe that is why our 6th Imam is using that example. It's like a tripod to provide support. As-salah, number 1 is salat or prayer. Was-zakah, number 2 is zakat or alms. Wal-wilayah, and number 3 is wilayat. So these are the 3 pillars that are the essence of Islam. In this you will notice that hajj and saum, they are not mentioned. They are the completion of the 5, but at a very basic level, if you want to know what is Islam, then it is these 3: wilayat, which is obedience to Allah and His Prophet and your Imam, and prayer and zakat. In one hadith, the relationship between prayer and zakat is mentioned, that salat is the asl, or the root, and zakah is the far', or the branch, because you sustain your faith through prayer, like roots draw water and nutrition from the earth, and then the branches are where the leaves and the fruit will come, and the fruit of your faith, the benefit and the effect of your faith, it shows through zakat. Are you going to give in the way of Allah and for the pleasure of Allah? The next hadith is also from our 6th Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, in which our Imam is asked by a companion, أوقفني على حدود الإيمان. Let me know what are the borders or the limits, the requirements of faith. Hudud or had, what is the thing that delimits faith, that defines faith? And the Imam replies, Shahadatu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. First you testify, there is no God but Allah, and that Prophet Muhammad is his messenger. وَالْإِقْرَارُ بِمَا جَاءَ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. And then testify to what has come from Allah, meaning what the Prophet brought from Allah. وَصَلَاةُ الْخَمْسِ. Pray your 5 prayers. وَأَدَاءُ الزَّكَاةِ. And pay your zakat. وَصَوْمُ شَهْرِ رَمَضَانِ. And fast in the month of Ramadan. وَحَجُّ الْبَيْتِ. Perform the Hajj as Allah has obligated. وَوِلَايَةُ وَلِيِّنَا وَعَدَاوَةُ عَدُوِّنَا. And have love for those who are lovers of Ahlul Bayt, and have animosity for those who are enemies of Ahlul Bayt. This is one step above wilayatu Ahlul Bayt and the animosity of their enemies. Don't just love Ahlul Bayt, but love the lovers of Ahlul Bayt. Because you only build a community when you have love for all of those who are also lovers of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhimus salatu wassalam. Don't set yourself apart. Say, I love Imam Ali, but these followers of Imam Ali, I don't have the time for them, I don't have the patience for them, they're not up to my standard, they're not as sophisticated, as educated, as wealthy, as accomplished as I am. No. If somebody is a lover of Ahlul Bayt, maybe they are very different in many ways from you in their background, in their culture, or in other areas, but they are your family. وَالدُّخُولُ مَعَ الصَّادِقِينَ. And then the Imam says, enter with those who are truthful, the honest, truthful, sincere people. That is an attribute. And you form a community on that basis of the values of Ahlul Bayt. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The next hadith is narrated from our 5th Imam. It is similar to the previous hadith. There are 5 things that Islam has been built on, which is al-salati wal-zakati wal-sawmi wal-hajji wal-wilaya. But then Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam adds an important completion to that hadith, which is وَلَمْ يُنَادَ بِشَيْءٍ مَا نُودِيَ بِالْوِلَايَةِ. Nothing has been emphasized in Islam as much as wilaya has been emphasized. Because it is through wilaya that you put into practice all of those teachings. Otherwise, Islam becomes an individual practice or a voluntary practice that we form, maybe a masjid together or a political union together. But the actual religious unity of Islam, which is based in knowledge, which is based in genuine guidance, that requires wilaya appointed by Allah and whose purity, whose authenticity is guaranteed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next hadith is from our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu was-salam. It is a very beautiful hadith because it tells us one of the benefits of that community. That community of faithful believers that we have. It protects each and every one of us. Our sixth Imam is reported to have said, "Inna Shi'a law ajma'u ala tarki salat lahalaku." If the Shia came together and they abandoned prayer, they didn't pray, they didn't perform their prayer, then lahalaku, they would be destroyed. وَلَوْ أَجْمَعُوا عَلَى تَرْكِ الزَّكَاةِ لَهَلَكُوا. And if they came together and they stopped giving zakat, then they would be destroyed. وَلَوْ أَجْمَعُوا عَلَى تَرْكِ الْحَجِّ لَهَلَكُوا. And if they came together and they, by mutual agreement, they abandoned performing Hajj, then they would be destroyed. So sometimes we have some members of our community, they may be a little weak in their performance of Hajj, or in their performance of Zakat, or in their performance of Salat. But because we have other members of our community that are practicing, that are keeping those commandments, then as a whole, our community is protected. On the one hand, because of God's blessings, He forgives or He overlooks some of our mistakes because there are other members of our community that are performing their divine obligations. So that is a gift from Allah that He shows mercy. But on another level, it is not just that Allah is showing us a gift, it is also that our community benefits. Because if some people are praying, then there is hope that their good practice will spread among the rest of the community, even if I might not be living up to that practice properly. If some people are going for Hajj, I'm not going even if it is wajib on me and I can afford it. But I see that they are going. I see that they are coming back. And so they are keeping the practice alive. Maybe inshallah it'll affect my heart and I will also make that intention to fulfill my obligation. I will go for Hajj as well. So there's two different levels. One is that Allah shows favor. He doesn't punish as long as there are members of our community who are doing their obligation and we are part of that community. We have an affiliation and an attachment to that community. And the other is that there is a social benefit. When some people are performing their obligation, then inshallah there is hope that it will have a good effect on other people whose practice may be deficient. The next hadith is narrated from Sayyida Zainab salamullahi alayha from her mother Fatimah al-Zahra alayha salam. And this is the famous khutbah of Sayyida Fatima alayha salam, which she gave in the court of the oppressor of her time, in which she described the purpose of our religious obligations. فَرَضَ اللَّهُ الْإِيمَانَ تَطْهِيرًا مِنَ الشِّرْكِ. Faith in Allah has become an obligation to purify us from polytheism. If you ever look at the practices and the rituals of polytheists, it is filled with so much that is impure, unworthy of the intellect and the disposition of a human being. Our fitrah, our aql, our emotional needs, they are repelled by those practices of the polytheists. So, Iman is purification. وَالصَّلَاةِ تَنْزِيهًا عَنِ الْكِبْرِ. Salah or salat, our prayer, is an obligation to remove arrogance from us. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Believers are those who are humble in their prayer. So prayer, just by going into sujood, you are showing your humility and your servitude to Allah. وَالزَّكَاةِ زِيَادَةً فِي الرِّزْقِ. The reason why zakat has been obligated is not to serve as a tax. A tax reduces your profit. But zakat is to increase your rizq and increase your sustenance. Don't think of it as a reduction, think of it as an increase. It increases your rizq because it gives barakah. But it also increases the rizq in society because when we don't have poverty, when people are not living in stress and in extreme poverty, then they become more healthy and more productive and all of society benefits. When people pay zakat and they take care of their needy, then there are fewer crimes. There are fewer thefts and everybody becomes wealthier and more prosperous. وَالصِّيَامِ تَثْبِيتًا لِلْإِخْلَاصِ. Allah has obligated fasting to ensure that we are sincere because it is a full day we practice our sincerity of purpose for Allah. وَالْحَجْ تَسْنِيَةً لِلدِّينِ. And Hajj is an obligation that gives honor, we can say, to Islam. It's a very beautiful practice, although now not all of the recommendations of Hajj are being carried out, especially to disassociate from the oppressors and the polytheists in a very visible and public manner by the Muslims. But Hajj is an honor and a dignity and elevation for the Muslims. وَالْجِهَادْ عِزًّا لِلْإِسْلَامِ. And then to defend your faith, that brings dignity and honor to Islam. وَالْأَمْرَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ مَصْلَحَةً لِلْعَامَّةِ. And the reason why we have been obligated to command what is good and forbid what is evil is because it brings benefit to all Muslims. So these are some of the teachings of Ahlul Bayt about our basic practices. May Allah guide us to always honor these teachings and benefit from them, because these teachings are not a burden for us, but they are a liberation and a guidance which illuminate our lives and bring us salvation in the hereafter. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar fasalli li rabbika wanhar inna shani'aka huwa al-abtar. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina Abil Qasim Muhammad. وعلى علي أمير المؤمنين وعلى فاطمة الزهراء وعلى الحسن والحسين وعلي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة بن الحسن القائم المهدي صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين. صلوات. All praise is due to Allah for His bounties, and we seek forgiveness for our shortcomings. In the second khutbah, one final hadith which summarizes the teachings that we have from Ahlul Bayt. This is a very beautiful hadith which has come to us from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. And it mentions wilayat, but in the time of the Prophet, because people were still new to Islam, so sometimes he used a very delicate and a very careful manner to introduce those important teachings to the believers. The Prophet says that Jibreel came to me and he said that al-Islam asharatu ashum. O Messenger, Islam has 10 parts. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ لَا سَهْمَ لَهُ فِيهَا. And if a person doesn't have a share in these 10 parts, then that person will be disappointed and will be at a loss. أَوَّلُهَا شَهَادَةُ أَنْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. To testify that there is only one God, وَهِيَ الْكَلِمَةِ. This is the word that you say with your tongue to affirm your faith. This is the kalima. وَالثَّانِيَةَ الصَّلَاةِ وَهِيَ الطُّهْرُ. The second is prayer, which is purification. وَالثَّالِثَةَ الزَّكَاةِ وَهِيَ الْفِطْرَةِ. The third is to give zakat, and that is your human nature, your human disposition to be charitable and to give back to Allah, or in the way of Allah. وَالرَّابِعَ الصَّوْمُ وَهُوَ الْجُنَّةِ. The fourth is fasting, and that is a shield to protect you from harm. وَالْخَامِسَ الْحَجْ وَهُوَ الشَّرِيعَةِ. The fifth is Hajj, and that is the Sharia. Literally, Sharia means a road or a path that brings you to water, that brings you to nourishment or sustenance. So Hajj is a means of approach to Allah, and it is a means of approach to the Imam and to the guidance of the Ma'asum. وَالسَّادِسَ الْجِهَادِ وَهُوَ الْعِزْ. Sixth is jihad, and that is honor and might. وَالسَّابِعَ الْأَمْرُ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَهُوَ الْوَفَاءِ. The seventh is to command what is good, and that is loyalty. That is how you show your loyalty to Allah and to His commandments. وَالثَّامِنَةِ النَّهْيُ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَهُوَ الْحُجَّةِ. The eighth is to forbid what is evil, and that is the hujjah, the conclusive argument that is a proof, so that people know what is evil and it does not spread within society. وَالتَّاسِعَةِ الْجَمَاعَةِ وَهِيَ الْأُلْفَةِ. Ninth is the jama'at, or the congregation, and this is the definition of wilayat, in fact, because you can only have a jama'at if you have unity of purpose. If you have commonality in your values and in your doctrines, and that comes to you from the wali, it comes to you from the imam, it comes to you from the source of guidance. So the ninth is to have a congregation, a community, you come together. That is ulfat, that is what gives you social closeness and friendly relations. وَالْعَاشِرَةِ الطَّاعَةِ. 10th is obedience. وَهِيَ الْعِصْمَةِ. Obedience to the wali, to the Prophet, to Allah. That is what will protect you in this life and the hereafter. May Allah guide and protect all of us and forgive us where we have shortcomings. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inna Allaha ya'muru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkari wal baghi ya'idukum la'allakum tadhakkarun. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Astaghfirullah rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Salatul Jumu'ah.